Hi students, this is a presentation to look at writing cohesive paragraphs and also to look at doing a library search. So there are two purposes to today's presentation. For the first one, I'm using a paragraph I wrote about the Serena Williams cover as an example. So I want you to take some notes during this presentation so that you know what I'm looking for in your writing from this point forward. What I'm going to talk about is a way to look at paragraph cohesion called the Renz tests. R-E-N-N-S, the Renz test. So I'd like you to jot that down and to listen as I go forward. So this is a test for paragraph coherence. How do we know that the paragraph that we're writing has enough evidence to support the topic sentence, basically? The first thing to note is not every paragraph needs to have all of these Renz, and you'll understand what I mean by that in a minute. So the R stands for reasons, the E stands for examples, N is names, the other N is numbers, I'm going to put that symbol, and the S is senses. So let me show you what I mean in this paragraph. I start the paragraph talking about who was the best athlete of 2015, asking questions about who actually dominated. This sentence here, ultimately, Serena Williams was a sports person of the year, and through her moving and inspiring acceptance speech, she highlighted some of the struggles facing African-American female athletes at this moment in U.S. history. So clearly, this is the sentence that I'm setting up for the rest of the paper. But for this example, looking at the Renz test, what I would look for in this paragraph and probably the next one, what are the reasons I'm using Serena Williams as a deserving recipient of the 2015 Athlete of the Year? What examples am I showing in my paragraph? How am I using proper names? Am I using numbers at all? And then senses. Senses would be something like the smell of fresh cut grass in my writing or something like that. So if I were to use the Renz test to look at this paragraph, I'd say, okay, so the reason, so Serena was ultimately the sports person of the year, and the reason she was, partly is these obstacles she was able to overcome. And I don't really talk about the reasons why she was actually a sports person, but I talk about how she ultimately was determined to be the sports person of the year, and that the example being also that she highlighted these are examples of challenges African American female athletes face, and I use some specific examples. So I might put E there. So I might note that I wrote a number of the year here as well. So that's just one example of how you might look at one paragraph and the Renz test. So what I'm asking you to do, so here this was just a little example for the class where I talk about what I'm going to go on and say. But again, you can see where I might have an example here, proper names here, using actually the work from the bundle on Serena Williams. So I'm looking for in your paragraphs that you have a topic sentence clearly and that you use at least one or two of these to support that topic sentence. And that goes for any kind of writing that you're posting from here forward. Now on to the second topic. This is from the end of the previous presentation. I want to show you in Maxwell Library two different ways to find sources. I'm going to expect you to be able to find your own scholarly and non-scholarly sources. So from off campus, this is the main page of Maxwell Library. From off campus, and then even sometimes when you're on wireless like I am right now, You might be required to put in your username and password to use the databases, but that's just something you probably already know. So this max search bar here is one way to start. This searches everything the library owns. At this point, I find this max search to be confusing for my own purposes. You're free to try it and use it. Let's do one sample search here, and then we'll do one using the max guides, which is how I prefer. We're going to use the same search terms in both places. Keep in mind here, you must use and or to join your subject terms together. You can't put in a whole string sports media in the Super Bowl 2017. You can't put in a string of words like that. The computer won't know what to do with it. So part of the reason I find this database to be a little confusing is, first of all, it includes everything. It has films, e-videos, articles, peer-reviewed and non-peer-reviewed articles. I just find it a little bit confusing. Over here, you can limit articles that are downloadable, books, videos, so you could limit it easily. If we look at the downloadable articles, we'll see how it limits that down, because at least that's 57, let's see, 57 results are a lot more reasonable than the 3,000 something results. What's funny here is I don't see too many articles that are actually about sports media and gender. I see a lot of articles that are something about metabolic factors. I have no idea. So here's an example about something that looks like a downloadable article from a scholarly source. Not playing fair coverage of women and minorities in the sports pages. If I choose access online, I guess it's going to ask for my login. Right. Okay, good. So this is one example we can use. We can take a look at the material here. These are the subject terms. This journal looks like property of University of Toronto Press. If we go over here, we can see there's full text that's in HTML, but it's not in PDF. You want to try to find ones that are in PDF if you can. Let's click this and see if the library can find this full text for us. Here we go. So whether we look at whether this is a scholarly article, it appears there's a summary, there's some actual empirical data, and then there's a bunch of sources listed, references at the back. So yeah, I would say that this is probably a scholarly article. There's a literature review to start it, looking at what other folks have done in this area. Then there's a methodology and context of this particular study. The ways that you can actually have this read to you using an accent if you'd like, or just listen to it in your car if you're short on time. But I think one of the best ways for all of these is to email them to yourself. So if you look over here, you can email to yourself, and what's nice about it is that you can pick citation format, APA style, and it will email this to you right to your inbox in APA style. So that is really handy. If we go back, you can hear that my email just came with this. If we go back to the list, I guess we have to shut that window so we can look at the search results. Here are the other search results. So that's one way to find them, by going through the Max Guide. That's at the front page of the library. That's one way right here, the Max Search Guide. That's what we just did. Another way, and this is the way that I suggest you operate, is go to the Max Guides. These are places librarians have created materials for us. Movement arts, physical education. Any of these really would work. Okay, so here you have something that looks a little more easy to access than the Max Guide, than the big guide at the beginning that searches everything. So here you have find books and DVDs. How do you do that? Find articles, web resources, and other help. So to find books, here's some reference books that are in the topic area. Call numbers, you could go to the library and look in the GV section. And you could look for books under keyword. I'm going to ask you to find all sorts of materials for your Learning Bundle 4. So you're going to have a mix of sources that you find, including books, encyclopedias, and journal articles, in addition to non-scholarly sources. So this is a good place to start. If I put in sports media and the keyword just for books and videos, we'll see what comes up. I'm not sure what we'll find here. For some reason, the sports media keeps spinning and it's not actually finding books in this category, so we're going to have to move on. And that does sometimes happen with your wireless service or things like that. But what I want to show you is about the find articles for now. There are multiple databases that would help you in this course. I'm going to show you SportDiscus as an example. What's helpful here is if you pick English as a language. This is an international journal. So if we try the same sports search terms and gender, let's try that. We might get many. Remember, we got 3,000 results in the other. So we got 250 results, which is still quite a lot. Let's link to full text so we know we can get the full text to limit it a little. Okay, there we go. So we can look at these. They would mostly be scholarly sources. They'll have lots of references, and they will have actual data collected. So you'll have to look at the abstract, the first 150 words, to see if they meet the criteria. So let's look at this one from Journal of Sport and Society in the PDF full text. So it's going to open in the PDF reader that I have on my machine. So what I mean by the abstract is this part. It tells you what they did, why they did it, and how they did it. You can find the name of the journal at the bottom and the header or the footer of the page. And you can tell there's an introduction and a lot of previous research listed before they get to the hypotheses, and then their own methods, so you know they actually collected data. I'm going to be asking you to gather your own scholarly sources. From here to email to yourself, what I would do is put a couple in a folder that look good to you. These are just examples. Go up to the folder view, open it, choose them all, then email to yourself. And just in the same way that the other one worked, you can email it to yourself in APA style. You can certainly watch this video as many times as you need to see how to access these library sources. Let me just send this to myself, and I'll back up and show you one more time how I got to the Max guides. I might have to X out of this and go back here. Yes, okay. So here we are at Maxwell Library, main page. What I would do is go to Max Guides, look for movement arts, and use leisure studies and recreation. Here's where you can find books. Here are some selected encyclopedias. Find articles. And you may use any of these databases. I chose to use SportDiscus. So that gives you a good sense of where we are at this point. Thank you.